I know, I'm actually very excited about it. Right now. How are you?
You
Does anyone need to get into that? Because I have one chair. Oh, perfect. Guy behind you here. I'm so sorry. Well, there's other
Thank you.
Yeah, I feel like putting my first year. Not I know. I have shoulder pain now.
All right, how does this sound? All right. All right, thank you everybody for coming out. All right, so this is a special meeting of the Masterville Community Council, and we're called to order. So for those, real quick recap of why we are here. So at last month in January, at a general body meeting, we had a presentation by the Manhattan Development Group for their project over at 4710 Madison, which is across from the self-storage facility and in front of Ilsco. They are asking for a letter of support from the community. How that works is that's something that developers, when they go in front of the city, use that as evidence that they did public engagement within the community. And then that kind of shows that, you know, depending on what it says, shows this is how the community feels about it, and it kind of guides that process. Now, what we end up doing tonight, because that didn't pass then in January, so we didn't, no action was taken, no decisions were made, other than to have this second meeting. That way they could take the opportunity to collect the feedback that they received at that meeting and potentially update their proposal or come back with specific information. That's why we're here now. What we end up doing tonight is up to everyone here, up to all of you. Yes, they are asking for what's called a letter of support. I did have some packets that we ran out of some extra context, basically describing that there are other options, right? And there are some examples in there from previous letters of support. And as well as recent past, we did a letter of no opposition as another example of action that we take potentially. We're saying more neutral statement that we don't oppose the project, but we're not maybe totally happy with it, right? It's like the middle ground option. But at the end of the day, reiterate it, it's up to everyone here what we want to do. And if anything's on the table, what we'll do is they're going to give their updated presentation. And then after that, you will have, we'll open the floor for discussion, any questions or comments, that kind of thing. Then we'll move to voting on the item. Again, what we specifically vote on, it's up to all of you. If there's any, whatever we end up voting on, that's what's going to get submitted. And then in any future meetings with the city, I will, as president, attempt to attend and fight that fight, whatever our messages that we want to send. I'll do my best to explain that to any city official, why we chose that. Right? Unless there's any questions for me, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, so we do have a mic stand that we'll set up to keep things orderly. This is the only topic for tonight, so please keep it on topic. And have your say, and then please sit down, and then you're welcome to come back up again later if you have something else that you want to ask or say. But please give everybody else the opportunity first. All right. So Doug, if you're up.
Thank you very much, Terry. And thank all of you for inviting us back this evening. We appreciate the opportunity to come back and speak with you once again. Again, my name is Doug Moore, and I'm with the Development Strategies Group. We're an organization here in Cincinnati that works with developers and a whole array of clients, developers who are working with develop real estate projects. Tyler Watkins is with us. Tyler was with work. So what we really want to share with you tonight is that we really took to heart the feedback that we received. To a project that we think makes sense. We really tried to listen to this group and the feedback that we received. In fact, also with us tonight is our project engineer and the other person who's part of our team that's with us tonight is Brendan Sullivan. Brendan's actually a principal person with the Manhattan Development Group, so we brought the developer back as well. Is what was requested last time. What we have done is pivoted the project to reflect some of the feedback that we received. And some of the things that I want to share with you tonight are the things that are new and different. So we'll do an overview of the project, talk about some of the issues that we feel that we need to address. We'll turn it over to Tyler. He can walk through some updated renderings for you, and then we can open it up and do the best we can and take questions. So as you might recall, we came in last time with a one building, 234 units. And some of the things that occurred were that was dense, there was a traffic concern, there was issues about the neighborhood look and feel. So what we have done is pivoted to a project that is now one that we think you will find more interesting, more appealing. Instead of one large building, there are now 8 buildings that have 10 units each. There's one larger building still now that will have 42 units in the proposal. We're right now. We have switched the name a little bit. Instead of Madisonville Flats, we are now referring to this as Madisonville Commons. Part of a neighborhood look and feel, and we thought that the Commons is more consistent with the look and feel of the neighborhood like this than flats, and the buildings aren't flats anyway. One of the other features of this property that I want to point out at the onset is the middle L-shaped building is a clubhouse, a community room, if you will. That building is going to have 6 units on top of it, and those 6 units are what we're going to call attainable units. They're not affordable, as we've discussed before. It's actually impossible to do an affordable housing project on this particular piece of property. The major reason that it's nearly impossible, if not entirely impossible, to do an affordable project on this property is because you usually have the land costs to acquire the property. You of course have the construction costs to develop the property and develop the apartment. But the other piece here is the fact that this is a former manufacturing site. It was a brownfield that requires remediation. I'll talk about the remediation program in a minute, but the remediation program is hundreds of thousands of dollars that are added to the bottom line of this project that render it really impossible to even contemplate affordable housing here. And then you layer on top of that a couple other things. One is that by virtue of being affordable, those affordable units require public subsidy. We are not seeking low income housing tax credit. It's not something that this particular developer engages in that type of business, but we are trying to provide what we call attainable units. And those attainable units will be right around that $1,000 price point where we're trying to make units available in this building that are reasonably priced and relatively affordable for people that live in the neighborhood. That in the large building with 42 units in, we are working to put in 6 additional units there that would fall into that attainable category. So we're working very hard to try and make those changes to develop a product that is providing, in this case, about 10% of the units that would be what we would put into. What you'll notice here also is the commercial space is gone. Again, I think that reflects part of what we heard from the neighborhood. This gets rid of some of that surface parking and also for neighborly feel that we try to develop. This project is one that, as we put it together, is certainly because it's a smaller scale project. It is less of a capital expense. The project is projected to be about $30 million. It's significantly less than the last project. What I wanted to point out to you with regard to the capital project or costs of this particular project that we're working on is that the $30 million is our capital cost. Last time I was here, we talked a lot about the property tax abatement. We talked a lot about the TICA, which is the city's voluntary tax incentive contribution agreement. Mr. Fisher is there. That is working for the city. But it's a piece that the city has put together, and just as a quick refresher, in order to qualify for the highest level of property tax, which is a 52% abatement that accrues to the developer, you need to participate in the BTICA. The BTICA is 15% of the new incremental value of the property. 7.5% of that goes to the city's Affordable Housing Trust Fund. The other 7.5% of that comes back to a fund in each neighborhood, the neighborhood where the project occurs, for the neighborhood to use for community projects in that particular area. The city of Cincinnati is still working on the logistics to manage those neighborhood funds, but the money will accrue in a fund that would be available back to the in this particular project, the other aspect of the property tax abatement is you're required to give 33% to Cincinnati schools, and that's 33% of the new incremental value of this process. Just by way of example, in this particular scenario, this project would generate about $850,000 in BTICA over the 12 years for the neighborhood. And it would be about another $850,000 if it goes to the neighborhood. What we ask you to keep in mind is that this project does make a significant contribution to the Madisonville community, and also makes a significant contribution to the city's Affordable Housing Trust Fund. That trust fund is up to about close to $100 million now, and this again will help the city as it goes to try and set its priorities for locating and funding affordable housing. Sarah, is it 56? I apologize. Sarah actually works at the Cincinnati Development Fund, which is administering the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, so it's closer to $50 million right now. But our $850,000 will get closer to the fund. So we're working on it. The last thing I want to share with you, and then we'll turn it over to Tyler to walk through the specifics of what we have proposed, is that timing continues to remain a very important component of this project. As we shared with you last time, we represent the developer. There is a separate owner for this project. Brendan and his team have a purchase option that expires at the end of this month. What the owner has told us repeatedly is that if we don't have a positive signal from the neighborhood that there's an interest in developing the apartment community there, that the owner is not going to renew the option for probably going to use it for a purpose that is currently permitted under the current zone. And you probably are familiar with the current zoning for that particular property, but you could do things there like a gas station, things like a car wash, fast food restaurant. I have no idea what they'll do, but just that gives you a general sense of what the possibilities might be. One last thing I do want to leave you with is we have had some questions about the remediation and the environmental aspects of this, and I'll just make a couple comments about that. And I'll turn it over. This particular project has gone through is what the Environmental Protection Agency and Ohio Action Program. What's happened is there's been a no further action letter that's been provided. What we have done is consulted with a consulting engineer who will perform a geotechnical study on the site. Of course, we're not going to go forward with this unless the project is approved. This is expensive consulting costs to incur. But if this project is approved and it moves forward, there will be a series of tests done, and what they will do is determine where vapor barriers need to be placed in order to properly manage the site, the radon that's under the ground on the site. So what's happened so far is the assessment's been done. We have had our engineer who's been reviewing that assessment, and we're comfortable with everything that's been done. There will be a soil cap that goes on top of it. There's a first layer of earth that's removed. There's a second layer of fresh, clean soil that's laid down. We'll put in this big vapor barrier that will be a part of that system. The other thing I think that's important to note, and you'll see this in the renderings that Tyler shares, is in addition to meeting the EPA's requirements and having a letter from the EPA that says the work that's been done here satisfies state standards to be a properly remediated site, we are moving these units up above the ground. Part of it's because the floodplain, part of it's just an abundance of caution. Apartment units are on, instead of one common structured parking garage, individual more unit-based. So we've really tried to address that environmental issue. When this barrier is in place, we'll have a second document from the EPA, requirement not to sue, which essentially says we've done everything correctly, and we're in a position now to move forward without any litigation or regulation violations from the state. So environmentally responsible and sensitive in managing. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Tyler, and he can walk through the renderings with you. Following that, we'll be more than happy to entertain your questions and move forward from there.
Hi, I'm Tyler. Thanks for having me back. Before I walk through the plan, I wonder if it's proper to detail exactly what we're here asking for tonight. I think that's not exact. Maybe that's not exact. What we're essentially asking for is a support letter for a zoning change. Are there any other ride-along, tag-alongs to that should be more specific? All right, I'm going to pass the mic back to you.
I mean, that is, as Carrie said at the onset of the meeting, we are asking the community for a letter of support to move forward with the zoning process. We would change this from the current zoning to a PD, which is zoning that we work in coordination with the city to write for this specific site. I think the only other thought I would add to that is this is the beginning of a process with the city of. If we get the letter of support this evening, the next step is that we go to the planning commission. The planning commission convenes hearings over our request for a zoning change. There are a couple meetings that the planning commission convenes. There's a staff conference. There's a meeting with the full planning commission. Ultimately, that zone change goes to council. If all three of those steps in that process, the public has an opportunity to comment. So this is certainly not the neighborhood's last bite at the apple, if you will, in looking at this project. The second thing is after we get the zoning approved, we'll go forward with the rest of the city for the property tax statement. Again, that's a very public process. It's a council hearing before budget and finance committee of council. After that, it goes to the full council. And again, those are opportunities for the community to have input as this process. So while we are actually pleading with you this evening for a letter of support to go forward with the zoning process, I think it's important just to make that point. Many more opportunities throughout this process where there's community involvement and opportunity for community input.
I need Doug for that type of explanation. So I guess I'll start just by saying last 3 weeks ago, I guess in January, I presented a building that was really big and really fancy. We had a lot of feedback on that building, and of course, we're just the architects, so the scrutiny that I take is much less scrupulous than maybe what Doug has to bear. But so I hope we can get into talking about the architecture of what we're presenting tonight. But I'll just say that we designed what you'll see here and what's been on Facebook now for a while in 2 weeks. In all honesty, we had a big project that was very expensive. It would have taken very long to build. It was surviving on a lifeline. And once we were denied the support letter here, we had to make a substantial pivot into something that was much less expensive. It could be built much quicker. And really what was the most cumbersome element of the big building, we'll call it, was the parking garage. We had a 2-story parking garage that we had an estimated cost of $11 million to build. And that's a hard pill for any development to swallow. We're charged as architects to try to balance the expense of that massive parking garage with a density of a specific amount of apartments above it that help the whole project to afford itself. So it's a weird threshold for us. The minute that we all understand that density is not going to be possible and the big parking garage is too expensive, to get rid of the parking garage, the whole project changes dramatically. So that the whole rug is swept out from underneath us. And that's why you'll see that it's a substantial pivot from what you saw 3 weeks ago in January. And that's because we eliminated a concrete parking structure. So we look at this now, and what I guess I'll go back to the page with the metrics first. Metrics just being the number of apartments and things. There are 122 apartments in the development that we've drawn. They're mostly made up by way of several 10-unit buildings. There are eight buildings that have 10 apartments in them. Every one of those apartments is going to be built out of sticks, so it's a wood frame construction type. Perfectly suitable that way by way of the building code. It's 8 3-story buildings that will have tuck under parking. Because we've been able to build this way, there's certain other things that we have to, and I'll work with our civil engineer who's here tonight, but the layout and the way these things are spaced is very, very much driven by efficiency, but the building code has certain requirements on how far these buildings have to be apart from one another. We want to maintain those safety features here, but also very cognizant of the idea that with this change in product type, we want to see that this property has a nice amount of green space available that can serve as an amenity and just plus up the quality of living in this development. So again, there are 122 apartments, and there are only 139 parking stalls. It's a fairly tight number, to be quite honest. Any developer, I think, would tell you that the market demand for apartments really want to be around 1 to 1.5. So one apartment affords 1.5 parking stalls. And we're well beneath that. We're closer to 1.1 to 1.25. But that jives with the type of apartments that we have, mostly 1-bedroom apartments and some 2-bedroom. Mostly 2-bedroom and some 1-bedroom. So you've got a couple more 2-bedrooms. 64 of these will be 2-bedroom apartments, and 54 are currently listed. 58 currently listed as 1-bedrooms. The size of them grew a little bit, whereas in the bigger building, when we were tasked with the need to have to cram as many apartments into the building as we could, we had a little bit more of a chance to spread our wings some here and relax, and the apartments got a little bit bigger. And you can see those metrics here. The 1-bedrooms range between 685 to 770 square feet, and the 2-bedrooms are on some of them over 1,000 square feet, which is, as an architecture firm that designs apartment buildings, we've done some 2-bedroom apartments that are 600 square feet. So these are quite large. So moving on, I'll just look at some of the pretty pictures. This is a rendering of what we are proposing for one of the 10 unit, one of the 8 10-unit buildings, which you can see is essentially has a parking garage underneath, but that parking garage doesn't have to be made out of concrete like previous iteration. This is all made out of wood and see some stone and brick, but we have a chance to make the building look nice still. So we're proud of the way the siding turned out, and we're looking for moments here to celebrate with this building. But I'm really proud of the way that it turned out. Another view from the side. So this is actually the street there is Shawano Trail, right? So this would be one of the first buildings you see as you turn off of the Shawano Trail there into the development. Everything now is drawn from a civil perspective as though all the streets are 2-way streets. So with a nice sidewalk, I had a couple meetings, some space for bike trails, and those things are fairly well accommodated in this site versus the previous design didn't really have a whole lot of room for those things. So certainly a much more modest and humble design, but with the design change, we found some pluses for just being more space. This is a view kind of down one of the main streets, what we're proposing on the left, you kind of get a sneak peek at a clubhouse there and a bit of a park or green space. Here's a view of that clubhouse, which would be in the middle of our development, which we're currently proposing a 2-story clubhouse. You heard Doug say that our intent now is to have some attainable dwellings be in the top of that clubhouse, which we are currently projecting that there could be 6 of those. The clubhouse itself, the whole building is just short of 5,000 square feet, 4,800 square feet. And there's some amenities that would be in that are not unlike any other apartment complex you're of it. A gym, leasing office, some space for business activity if you want to work from home, or accommodations for that. This is another view of just the clubhouse with a bunch of these 10-unit structures in the back. Again, just another pretty picture of the pool. So that's pretty much it on the architecture, but again, happy to be here, happy to fill all your questions, so let's have at it. All right, I want to apologize, Carrie asked me to print a whole bunch of stuff, I just didn't have time to do it. How loud is this? Well, I'll adjust this. What we'll do, discussion. All right. Folks line up here behind me. I can have a chair set up. That way, like next person up, they can see the deal. So, but at this time, I have to ask for a motion to open this up as a discussion. So, okay, got Dave Capisser, and then for a second. Okay, Anna, you can. So we're discussing this development and a potential letter of support for it. So who would like to go first? If you have any mobility issues, by all means, raise your hand. I can go over you.
I learned this afternoon term that was told to me or explained to me. It's called the Hub Zone Empowerment Act. And it's federal funded. Now I want to know, are you retrieving any type of fundings because the Hub Zone Empowerment Act is based on unserved neighborhoods that is blighted, that is poverty stricken. And I would like to know, are you receiving any federal funds in that?
We are not receiving any federal funds through any federal program. I would suspect that a program like that would probably be something that the city of Cincinnati would pursue, not an individual developer. And I'm not familiar with anything that the city of Cincinnati is doing on that one right now. I don't know if any, sometimes the city sends staff to these meetings. I don't see anybody here from city staff, but I'm unfamiliar with that, but we are not pursuing any federal dollars for this particular project.
I live on, Bill Fisher, I live on Sonoma Court, right around the corner from the site. So I'm sorry I missed the last meeting, because I would have definitely said it's a perfect place for a bigger building. So I like what I saw before, the bigger buildings. There's nothing around it, other housing, so it wouldn't dwarf anybody's house. So I like the bigger building. This, I think since we're talking about a zone change right now, there's a lot more to do. I definitely is better than what's there. So the manufacturing site, I walk my dog past that a lot. Tired of seeing that mound of dirt there. I know manufacturers don't like smaller sites anymore. It's pretty small. So I think this, as far as the zone change, I would be a residential use on this. I wish we didn't have the storage place across the street. That was zoned and that was allowed to go through. So I wish this site, I hope the site doesn't end up like that. I don't see more storage. So I think having people there, there's, as far as traffic, failure, the city engineer have to do egress out of that, so. I think in general, I'm very supportive. I'd love to see something like this.
Thank you. We have gone through the consolidated site review process, and one of the things that came out of Department of Transportation and Engineering is that us to do a traffic study. But I think with the smaller footprint, we're going to have a pretty minor impact on traffic. But thank you.
Well, I want more information, just go around. Appreciate it. What do we do? What kind of
Jeff, do you want to address that?
Well, Jeff Flaherty with Cardinal Engineering. There's been two separate, we're a civil engineering firm, but there's two environmental firms that came in on phase 1 investigations, phase 2 investigation. The main contaminant is radon. To the higher level, there's radon in everyone's soil. There's radon everywhere, and it's just a higher level on this site. It'll be addressed in multiple ways. One of the big ways is, it's kind of not that far down underneath the dirt. But once we fill, there'll be a bunch of fill that's put on this site, so that helps. And then there's a vapor barrier that goes in there, so it traps the radon from coming up into our site.
we get a liner, right?
That is correct.
Okay. So we're putting a pool in, underground pool.
Correct.
We're required to put a retention pond in, correct?
It will be, yes.
Well, it has to be. Retention.
Yeah.
And finally, is better than it was before. Flooding, why are we required, get flooding permits? If they sell that money on the flood wall, still studying for it, they got heat stuff, why are we still required? Yeah.
I don't know what zone you're in, but there's a couple different ways to get out of that flood zone. One of them would be the place fill, and after that fills place, you come and survey your site. It's called to get a flood elevation certificate to prove that your property is up out of that site. I don't know what property you're talking about exactly. Our plan here is
what do you mean by property?
But, well, each property gets, after you fill it up out of the flood zone, or if a wall gets put in there, you need to go what's called for a LOMAR, which is a letter of map amendment to the FEMA. Basically, FEMA comes out and gives you those flood zones. And after either a flood wall is put in, or you place fill to get out of the flood wall, you gotta come in and pay for a surveyor or an engineering company to come in and get what's called a LOMAR, which is a letter of map amendment. Send that to FEMA, and that takes you off of FEMA's registry to pay flood insurance. So on this site, we're
Very expensive.
yes. Part of us protecting us from the radon and putting that fill in is after we put that fill in, we'll have to come out and do a survey. And then that survey will say that we're above what's called the base flood elevation. And once you're above that base flood elevation, we can verify to the city and FEMA that we're above that base flood elevation. We will submit that LOMAR letter, and that will take us out of that.
I know that most residents are aware, how do you remediate house overflow? Get a pump, you have a pump above the house. You're gonna have to pump this out of that. And you can't drop it all there, you got somewhere that you're gonna have to remediate it by.
You're 100% correct, and basically we've done the phase 2. We haven't designed the actual system yet because we haven't got approval, and that costs thousands and thousands of dollars to design it. But we know what's there, and we know that a system needs to be designed. Now, when we get this approved, we will have to go through the EPA and submit our design, and prove that we're cleaning it up. And it usually has to be tested for a certain amount of time.
We got a couple options here. They said the letter of no opposition. Would you be okay with that? We came up with that. Here's a couple letters, a letter of support. Letter of opposition. This is a letter expressing the general body, says on the project, not meeting the expectations of the community. If you're the applicants having an attempt to meet, if you have that community's concerns, because the city policy allowed them to move forward, this is simply stating that if you don't like this project, but you cannot stop. You'd be okay with that, be able to move this process forward? You'd be able to take that letter like that downtown?
Well, objective this evening is to get a letter of support. We would be much more comfortable going forward with the planning commission and going forward with city council if the community supports the project. Thank you.
David Salter. I live on Ravina. So I was just gonna say thank you so much for just even having us involved in this process. I'm totally for it as well because it's an eyesore just with it being a blank space and I don't want any more commercial. But I do have a question about the housing. Had you guys thought about doing condos or anything like that? I've worked in housing for over 10 years, so I'm ecstatic that you're basically bringing in housing for potentially 350 people that wouldn't have housing, but is there a way to make it to where people can purchase?
Well, thank you for that question. I appreciate that. Condos are very, very difficult to produce as a condo project. The primary reason is most banks require you to resell 50% of the condos before they will finance the project. And that's an endeavor that is nearly impossible, which is one of the reasons there are so many condo projects occurring in the city of Cincinnati. Also some architectural problems with that. Tyler, you might expand on this a little bit.
Yeah, just as an architecture firm, I guess I touched on this last January. That, the difficulty with a condo project is we submitted for permit, and then you're giving it to a condo owner. They can build whatever they want to build inside the condo. It's just as a developer, as an architect, there's difficulties in just the time and the effort that it takes to attend to the needs of 122 new homeowners versus people that are just taking the kitchen that they have and don't want to try to tell you what kind of cabinets go in the kitchen. Just a completely different project. And just something that I think, again, one of the bonuses of what we've rendered here and what we're discussing tonight is the expediency that it can be built versus we would have been here 3 years from now wondering why is this big building still not here because it's under construction. This can be built much quicker, and condos I think will slow that whole process.
And I will just say to the community, having worked on the back end in mortgage lending and on the nonprofit side, just having developers look at Madisonville to develop is a big deal in this financial market because generally with the prices rocketing, they would have just, so I'm 100% for it. Thank you guys so much for your time.
Did like last time, what do Madison here, then out of CDA out here. CDA is a three-way contractor, city, and the community. Know you're very good. Better intent, check on the box. City put that out for the federal government. Ackerman, after the community, didn't have a CDA. And here y'all say, get a check, then leave them left behind. Up on the property. They've been here the longest, you get priced out. Got a house, you maintain it, you call it, you don't get nothing for it. City giving that, plus tip money. If you not get that, but if you payment, the neighborhood should get 15-year payment. If the city don't feel you have money ain't just gonna go by to be on the neighborhood. We can't just grandmothers and fathers here, it's worth their blood off in the house. When is that gonna be, gonna affect on their property? Now, the city of Cincinnati just took the road back from the stadium. Baseball team that lost 100 games. You got a football team that came in second and third. That's still bad.
It's a lot better than the football team used to be.
Well, they lost. Nowadays, they say.
That is
you come
a
in
harsh
second.
judgment, but we'll take
You
it.
come in second, third, that's good, do it out. Shake hands and next time. So that's my concern. What did Madisonville get out of all this, this? Now, it's up to the contractor to go to the city and say, look, we're getting a 15-year abatement, or we getting both. Need to do something for the neighborhood. Keep the older people in the house, they ain't taxed out. We need to do something for them. Now, they got a lot of money. We don't have that money. So, hey, you're gonna do this thing for us. You gotta do something for the neighborhood. City gotta own up, they always got a plan, but they ain't got it running. Put gas in, they ain't running. The program you said, they ain't got that. Got them going out of groundwork. They always making us say, we gonna do it? We're gonna lose weight? So we got a problem here in Cincinnati. The contractor gotta be on the neighborhood side. And get the check, you get the thing, I can ride past and say, a beautiful house. You got a beautiful complex. And if my tax will go up, I lose my house 15 years from now, and then and the red lines, they give me no money. The city red line, took the tax, and then put that in the neighborhood. Blinders off my eye. Now they'll probably vote for it, but y'all got a possibility. Neighborhood. I just get what you got, and then buy. And people don't come visit me. I know money is important, but things are important too.
Well, I appreciate your comments. I would just offer a couple of thoughts. One is that we are, as I said, we're committed to the city's voluntary tax incentive contribution agreement, which over time will generate about $420,000. It comes back to the neighborhood of Madisonville that the community will be able to deploy as the community sees fit. I think the second thing, which is important to keep in mind, is a brownfield site. There are thousands of them across the city of Cincinnati. The city asks for brownfields to be redeveloped. The city asks for population density. The city wants density along transit routes where people can easily get on the bus. They want it near neighborhoods where people can assess neighborhood, where they can access neighborhood business districts and support neighborhood business districts. We are trying to develop a product that brings more people to Madisonville. It can help support the business district and support the local businesses. So I think there are ancillary benefits that come with this that aren't necessarily just cash, but there is, again, over the term of the abatement, if you were to receive that from the city, again, that $420,000 that would be at the community's disposal. It doesn't solve all the problems, certainly, but I think it's certainly a reasonable contribution that should be recognized. That's a question you're going to have to pose to your city council members and the mayor, because what I would share with you on that point is if you're given your passion about property taxes and property tax abatements, right now, the city of Cincinnati is considering a change in the residential property tax abatement program. It's in pure neighborhoods, in more prosperous neighborhoods would be eligible for shorter terms and less abatement for new construction and renovation projects. Less prosperous neighborhoods would get an increased term and percentage back. If you're concerned about that are in Madisonville and how your property taxes go up, this is the time to talk to your city councilman and the mayor about how they can manage your property tax increases. You know, at one point in time, the state of Ohio had a homestead exemption for people who were over 65, and they capped your property tax when you turn 65. So there are tools available that the city could deploy, and I encourage you to talk to the city council and the mayor about things like that.
So, like, we'll tell somebody do $2,500, 35, and then we'll take them off.
We're still paying taxes. It's just allocated differently.
We got.
Thank you. I'm Alex Smith. I'm a 13-year resident. This has changed a lot, so I had some notes from the previous iteration of just kind of walk through it. First thing that I have a question about is you're calling these attainable units versus workforce place housing. Is there a difference on that, or is that still the same?
Well, it's still similar.
Okay.
You know, the city has defined workforce housing based on average median income in Hamilton County. Okay. We call them attainable. We don't want to call them affordable, but we're trying to make them as a the affordable term because percent and below.
This is more like 80%.
But these will still be in the 80%, 100% in that range of the AMI for Hamilton County.
Okay. And then, so going forward, let's just kind of walk through this. I guess the voluntary tax incentive contribution agreement. It's different now because we're talking about a $30 million.
Correct. It's about half of what it was.
So the numbers I just wrote down quickly, it's 850K going to Affordable Housing Trust Fund, then 850 going to the community.
Which would be half because our project is half that
Okay,
size.
so it's half, okay. But nonetheless, in about 12 or 15 years, it's going to be a lump of this fund for the community to use. And so my questions about that is, how do we access those funds? Do you know that? Do you have an idea? Is that been set up yet?
The city is in the process of setting up from what I understand, the city is going to have like a trustee that will manage those funds. There will be an organization identified in each neighborhood that will administer those funds and make decisions on how those help.
And these
It
can
will
go,
be a neighborhood-driven decision.
and they can go to community nonprofit projects. They can be murals, they can be playscapes, they can be streetscapes. Got it. That's great. So that really brings it back to the community. It seems like money is coming back to the community immediately. My understanding, just so you're not alone in this, but PLK, the Jameson, and the Smart Storage both have contributed to this bid cut fund. So there's already money available, which I think is really good. So we have to, as a community, figure out how we're going to access these funds. What else do I want to talk about here just quickly? Yeah, somebody just brought up, last person, this is a brownfield, and it's really, I think, is a great use of what is an unbuildable site. I'm a landscape architect by profession, and this is a site that really requires some interesting work. But what I see here is a lot more doable than the big, massive sort of behemoth structure we had last time. And one question about zoning is, you're asking for zoning, so we're going to change it from MG, manufacturing general, into, is that PD, is what you said?
Yeah, plan development.
Are there buffer requirements different for those? Is there less of a buffer requirement for the MG?
There, in the planned development zoning process, we will go to the city with a recommendation on what the buffers would be, parking, things like where the trash receptacles are located and things like that, how far they are from the building. And it's a negotiation process with the city to so there's dimensions and there's setbacks.
And then signing, okay, that sounds good. Oh, yeah.
Three sides of this, your buffer by Oh,
Right,
so you really only got,
drainage ditch really on one side.
right,
Okay, and last time you said you're committed to gateway signage, and, you know, Madisonville does have some really good gateway points, you know, Murray Triangle, both of the trestles. So I know there's a trestle there in that area. Yeah, hopefully we can get that waymaking signage that we already have, with white letters, so it'll be really nice on a bridge like that.
Well, I will tell you that we are.
I'll help you, pilot. And then just addressing affordable housing seems to be an issue with Madisonville on many of these projects, and it's a true issue. Affordable housing is a problem. But my understanding, just in it was announced last week, that MCC is already building 9 more houses. Is that correct? I guess we got 9 more houses being built at a below market rate, and that's on top of 5 others from previous years, which is great. So it's 14 single-family houses have been built for affordable houses. There's families to come into the community, and that's a great thing on MCC's part. And it seems that AFTAB and the council are committed to affordable housing. And I think affordable housing does go back to the city, and it's truly not a community council to make decisions on how we can do affordable housing. We can voice it, but really we don't have any teeth. So I think this is a great use of a difficult site. Appreciate you guys coming and having a conversation with the community and having the community have that conversation back with them. And I support it wholly. Let's go forward. Thank you. Thank you.
I got a couple questions. Be honest with you, I don't not love it. I don't love it. I'm a little disappointed. We do, to your point, we have a ton of brownfield sites in the city. I was really hoping for like a Phoenix level work type of development. This seems very standard for city of Cincinnati. I know you put together in 3 weeks. Very impressed. Can you talk to me a little bit about the accessibility units? Because I noticed on the drawing, on the mental drawing that you mentioned, everything says walk up. That's a concern for me, because that's telling me that every single one of these units is not going to be accessible for anybody with any type of mobility issue, which excludes a lot of potential residents in the neighborhood. Can you talk to me about that one?
Sure. I guess first there's just the applied government standard that a set number of dwellings here will have to be accessible, fully accessible. In a development of this scale, it's a minimum of 2%. So at least 2% of the apartments in this development will have to be fully accessible. What it's saying is also true, and I know you couldn't tell that from looking at these pictures, but these eight unit buildings, 10 unit buildings. There are 8 10-unit buildings. Every one of those 10-unit buildings has 2 apartments on the ground floor. So it's, again, I know it's kind of difficult to see here. Maybe zoom in. Hang in there with me for a second. If we consider that this is one of those 10-unit apartment buildings, all of these are where cars park, so tuck under parking. And these are two dwellings on the backside of those parking stalls. So those obviously will have a good chance of being accessible to people in wheelchairs.
But no second or third floor.
Well, by way of the building code, you do have to provide allocations for those accessible units to be spread throughout the development. So you can't really just say they're all on the first floor, but it's sensible to assume that there's no elevator in these apartment buildings, save for this is a bigger building that does have an elevator in it. So there could be some fully accessible upstairs that people in wheelchairs could use. But Again, you kind of, we have to follow the letter of the law, and the law says that we have to evenly distribute accessible units by a minimum of 2%. It's an easy one.
Doctor said I shrunk.
This one. Thank you.
And I thank you for coming back, and I thank you for not only hearing but listening. Not only hearing but listening. And I don't love it because it looks very utilitarian. My concern is, I'm a former community development, that I'm responsible for inclusion and social justice for my spiritual center, which is the east side of Cincinnati. And I follow comments, I make comments, but I definitely follow the comments going next door. And people are concerned. I don't like to use the term affordable housing because it's an oxymoron. I mean, what's affordable housing to you may be different from me. But if we're looking at what's happening out here, and I do feel the seniors because I talk to so many seniors throughout the week and on my day job. I'm talking to seniors. I'm a 16-hour-a-day working person. And when I hear them say they don't want me, I can't move out of my house because their homes are functionally obsolete, which is not your problem. But I would wish that there were attainable units, whatever that means, for them. And I would wish you go back to the drawing board because I've been studying about you and you know what you're doing. To do something that has a sense of architectural integrity that complements what's around Madison. Now, one more thing, and I'm putting in a plug for our nonprofit. Is that right, Marcia and Kathy? We have an acre. We have been looking for a developer. So if you're looking, you said you could connect us with some developers that want to do affordable housing. Our stuff has to be owner occupied. So we're looking to build condos because there's a way to do that because you've got Fifth Third around the corner. And employer assisted housing is a thing that's waiting to happen in Cincinnati. I believe that Madisonville would help you with that because the carbon footprint many of those workers are making to drive from Colerain Township to take you down here to work when they can ride the bikes up the street, that would be something special. Okay, so I'm a little lukewarm on supporting the project. I'm concerned about where the money goes because some people have amnesia. I don't mention John Cranley's name because I like drinking with him when I used to drink. I would invite you all to stay true to what you've said to us. Because the Port Authority didn't, and I'm ashamed of that because I served on the Port Authority for 5 years. The Port Authority lied about that to the point where they took down what they said was going to be low-income housing initially and all that, took it off the website. I love that man on their bill, but he knows I'm telling the truth. He took it down because I called him on it, but I worked for Jack Welch for years, so I know to make copies of everything. So if you can, look at not utilitarian. One thing I just want to put on everyone's mind, since 2004, we have garnered 1,072 apartment units in Madison. Okay, 1,072 since 2004. Okay, started with the big dogs of Western Southern, and they made promises they didn't keep. Understand Ackerman's made promises they didn't keep. I'm expecting you to keep your word. I'm inviting you to dance a little bit more time. You're good at it. You know what you're doing.
I don't know whether to brag or beg for forgiveness. Thank you. Again, I think there's a certain amount of pride with presenting a big old building here in January, and Brendan here, the developer, can echo what I'm saying. But I did hint at the last meeting that that this project was teetering on the edge of being too expensive. And I spoke about the state of the economy, not as though I'm an authority on that, but I've watched my business be impacted by the fact that rates at the bank have gone up significantly. And that's just, I think what we produced here tonight is really what we can call a dose of reality, where the rubber really did meet the road, and this is really something that we know is buildable and buildable in a way that it can happen much faster than what we presented in the previous meeting. There are several people in the room here tonight that know I crucify myself in front of the room and say, if you got beef, call me. You can email me. You can look me up. To whatever extent it's possible, I want to give folks my time to listen. I want to design something that I'm proud of. I want to design something that you guys are proud of. And ultimately, the developer himself wants people to live there. So I don't want to design something that's ugly and utilitarian. I want to design something that's great, everybody loves. So don't hesitate to reach out to me if you can find my email address. And I apologize, Ms. Boland, I know I owe you an email, but I'll be with you.
Which is right off Madison. I have to say, I don't enjoy walking down Madison. It feels very dangerous. If you need overflow parking, where do you anticipate that people will be walking to?
It's hard to anticipate where I think overflow parking will be, but I guess 2 points to that is that just to look at the metrics and as they are produced here tonight, 122 apartments with 139 parking stalls. Almost every one of those parking stalls is covered and secured. So we built garages with garage doors. You pull in, you've got your own space as a tenant in the building. There may exist some parking spaces. The civil engineer's here tonight, and he's not really had a chance to sink his teeth into this plan and miraculously find more parking spots than there are presented tonight. But being that this is a planned development, as Doug said, there really is no applied requirement on the part of the city. We could suggest that this has 0 parking spots and compel the city that was okay, given its proximity to the bus route. But we get to make our own standard here. So really what we're driven, what has to drive our parking count is market demand. As I said, 1 to 1.25 is something that we've become comfortable with.
This is gonna be my last time up here, yeah, but do you know what percentage after building that will be apartments in Madison? Because my concern is getting back to the senior citizens, will this bring property values up or down for the homeowners?
I don't know how many single family homes versus rental properties are available in Madison. I just couldn't speak to that. I guess we heard 1,072 units are currently here, have been built, but I really don't know.
Thank you for coming back tonight. Being here a month ago again. I think this new drawing looks beautiful. I'm very excited about it. The previous drawings you presented, they were also beautiful and very impressive, but the massive structure just did not remind me of Madisonville. I live very close to where this is going to be built, and I'm excited that this can be a part of our community. That feels very walkable, feels like a neighborhood, it feels like part of the existing Madisonville neighborhood. So thank you for coming back to present this, and I'm excited about this. That's all I'll say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Shout out Cupcakery, right? Cheesecakery, that's right. My first time grab coffee with Bill.
I was curious if there's going to be any electric vehicle charging station.
I don't know.
So you could hook up electric in there. I don't know where you are with that.
Just in case folks didn't hear it, Brendan just committed to doing some electrical charging stations.
A lot of people saying that they like the idea because it beautifies and it looks good. What apartments do we need in Madison? We have so many complexes already with apartments that aren't even built. How many more apartments do we need to build that are gonna sit there and have empty? Then we're talking about traffic. The traffic is already terrible trying to get on the expressway. Just to go to Norwood Lateral 71 North. Building this right here on the, gonna make it even more worse, even more difficult, just to go to the expressway. There's other things that are needed in Madisonville than apartment complexes. There are other needs and other things that need to be dealt with prior to beautifying and building more apartment complexes. There's a whole creek in Madisonville that has not been taken care of or dealt with. When are those issues going to be taken care of versus an apartment complex? That's not important at all. So deal with those things first before you're building more things. That city council commit to the things that they said they were going to do first before we agree to allow another complex to come into Madisonville that's going to sit half empty. I've been living here for 37 years in Madisonville. And the change that you guys are doing, it's terrible. It's unacceptable. I couldn't even afford those apartments. I have a mortgage. Those apartments cost more than my mortgage. So what would make me want to move into those apartments when I can have a house that's cheaper than that?
We okay this thing. East side, you get downtown, you get change. How do we lock this? It's gonna get PUD, land use development. You can't change the plan. We've already changed the plan. These plans look better. I agree. You've come a long way. How is a community, how do we lock this in so we don't end up back across the building when you get this up?
Well, I think there's a couple things there. One is when we go forward with the zone change, it will be very specific to the site. And again, the community will have an opportunity to comment on that. Second thing is, I think if you approve the plan tonight, what you can do is say it's approved is or you support what's before us. And I think that's the case in most instances. You're supporting the plan that we're presenting. It's not something that we can't pivot back to 234 units. What you're supporting is the plan that's before you.
I'm a former trustee in Columbia County, and I can, what happened behind Walmart and Home Depot, Viewpoint. We changed the zoning, county did, we did. Mr. Brisbane came to the township meeting downtown, said, we're gonna do condominiums here. Beautiful view. Once the zone change went through, 1995, 1996, that all changed. It became apartments. It became ugly. And we've already completed. The zone change was already through. Halfway through the process, he came back and said, oh, by the way, these aren't going to be condominiums. They're going to be condominiums. That's why I'm kind of hesitant. So we got to lock this in as a community so it doesn't turn into something.
I think I can answer your question. As a PD is a plan development. That plan that you get approved is locked in. If you want to change it, you got to go all the way through back the program. So the safest thing that you could approve, or I guess as a community, you could say we approve this PD. So as a plan development, that plan becomes the zoning. And if there's any changes to that plan, then the whole process starts back over. Yes.
I love the architect of your building. It's beautiful. She came in here 2 years ago. You would have got you in here. But anyway, I've been out here all my life. And I see that Madison used to be the community that had the most housing out here. Very few apartments. And we are overjoyed to have development in Madisonville. It's been a long time waiting on this development. But we have been a food desert for a long. Like a young lady said, we want to see infrastructure in Madisonville. We want to see a grocery store. We want to see our dollars stay in our community. They give us economic development and economic growth so we can expand. With all these apartments and no grocery stores, no anything that we need to sustain in our own community without putting our dollars in all of these white communities. We need our dollars to stay in our community. So we need infrastructure. That's what we need. You know, apartments, like the young lady said, I love it. So when are we going to get infrastructure in our community? Everybody want apartments. Infrastructure. That's all I got to say.
Green. Is there a place like walk dogs and kids to play that, you know, the James Anderson place? So Jameson that went up there, you basically are in your apartment and then you've got Madison, really busy street, nothing to do around there, no green, sidewalks. Is there anything, if you have kids, you know, or dogs that could be safely contained in there to walk around?
There are a couple of amenities that we loosely listed here on this sheet. Two of those still are, and this was okayed by the developer as we suggested it. There is obviously everything that's in this drawing that's green is meant to be green, so that's grass, vegetation of some sort. But there's also a playground noted on here, as well as called a dog run. So have a mini park. So, you know, that hold us accountable for those things is all I can say. They're on the plan now, you approve it, we hope to achieve those things. All right, I think that's everything. Oh, no. Literally.
I do have one last question. I'm just curious, a couple weeks ago, the city passed a policy requiring that any developments have to disclose all the equity partners. Can you share who all the equity partners are in this project?
It's Manhattan Development Group, so it's Brendan and his investors who are the partners in the project.
Our company name is Manhattan Development.
Right, yeah.
So that's what our function is. It's anywhere in the lines.
Property owner also a part of this project?
We will develop it, it's not the owner of the property.
I have one last question, and you can hear me from back here. In terms of minority inclusion in the development of the project,
Sure, I'll tell you, we obviously the city of Cincinnati has inclusion goals that everybody tries to achieve. The city holds to those standards. It's a supplier diversity initiative where we are required to make the bid packages available to a group of people that the city assembles who they have identified as minority suppliers that are registered with the city. So that process will be undertaken. I think the plan right now is to use Manning Construction, which is a woman-owned business, and Manning Construction has done projects in the Cincinnati area, in the city of Cincinnati before, and is familiar with the requirements, and I think is networked with the minority supplier community, so they're able to bring those suppliers into this development process.
Okay, it is 8:25. The only thing I think at all that clarified that didn't clarify earlier is that the existing zoning, to be very specific, is manufacturing in general, what it is. And then they are asking to switch it to planned development. And just to give you many examples, the red is planned development zone. Lead paste is Oakley Station is a collection of them. So those are some other examples in the immediate vicinity that have gone through a similar process to the city of Cincinnati, although they obviously look different than this. Okay, so I'm gonna cheat sheet out here so I don't mess this up, hopefully. So how this is gonna work is Need a motion for a letter of support for the Manhattan Development Group to go for their zone change request from manufacturing general to planned development. They want someone to make that motion. Alex Smith has made that motion. Would anybody like to second it? And right. And Gibbs, okay. So now we will vote on the item. However, important that we can, a member can amend the item if you want to add or remove conditions or change the nature of it. Okay, so that's something that the audience had, membership has the opportunity to do, is to amend the motion. Okay. No one like to do that, we'll just go straight to vote. Okay, so we're going to do nice and orderly with a show of hands. I'm going to count out loud. How many people would like to say yes by show of hands? Okay. Please keep your hands up. Okay. We'll start here to my right. You'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Okay. Lower your hands. By show of hands, how many no's do I have? 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Okay. And then by show of hand, how many abstentions do I have? Anybody want to? Okay, everybody has one way or another. Okay. So hopefully Anna can check my math. The yeses have it 21 to, what did I say, 17? 18. 18. Okay. The yeses have it. Adjourn, or is there any? Yeah. Need someone to make a motion to adjourn? Go with Alex Smith. Thank you for coming. We do have a general body meeting next week with some important announcements for public amenity improvements for the neighborhood, and amongst other items.
My bedroom, we're living in a little small 2-bedroom. If I come in my yard. See, I got all these apartments, and half of them ain't even filled. How many more apartment complexes? That's all I do. I need to know that thing.